Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back. Hey, Julie, it's April 1st, 2021.
Yes. Happy April Fool's Day.
And by the way, how is it that you haven't tried to fool me with anything today?
It's because every time I think about it, I remember the time that you had me convinced that you had, what was it, a miniature donkey or a horse or something on the way named Buttercup a few years ago. And you had emailed all my friends and posted it on Facebook. And I had forgotten it was April Fool's Day, and that was when we were living in Texas, so it was totally believable.
Buttercup was a mini horse. That's right. It was a made up mini horse.
And that was a good one.
And we had 2 mini cows. So
yes.
Listeners, when we lived in Texas, we had this little, guess what, mini ranch.
Right.
North of Boston.
Yeah, because we're from Ohio, and a ranch to us is still 5 acres, but in Texas, it was definitely a mini ranch.
So this was a little play ranch we bought, and we bought 2 little mini cows. And if you don't know what a mini cow is, just Google Highland Dexter cows. There's these cows that essentially I don't know how to describe them other than they're maybe a quarter the size of a normal cow. Now they have all the cow attitude you'd think they'd have.
Yeah, and they're still 800 pounds apiece.
And they have massive horns. But here's the cool part. In really cold weather, which maybe after this last Texas winter, these cows naturally develop long hair that then basically turns into dreadlocks. So just Google, if you want to see the funniest looking critter ever, just Google Highland Dexter cows. Now that we're on this, and by the way, this is not the topic for today's podcast. Today's podcast is 12 questions to get you back on track, first quarter review. But I want to finish our cow story.
Yes.
All right. So I had the notion that we should get some mini cows because we had our daughter and we wanted her to basically, she had some chickens and,
5 acres to populate.
Right. And we were wanting her to have some, experience basically knowing how to take care of animals. That has to go, towards someone's character in the long run in a positive way.
Yeah.
That was the idea. Mm-hmm. And so we went, I did some homework and did some searching. And of course, this was my idea, not Julie's, because she never would have thought, let's get some mini cows. So I found out this lady, this breeder of these Highland Dexter mini cows. And there was one that was, down the road, as they say in Texas, probably like 5 hours away. But she had a whole bunch of these little guys, and she wanted to, she obviously sold them. She showed them. I know, it sounds insane, but there you go.
She rents them to movie sets.
Okay, so we're not making any of this up. This is actually life in Texas. We could tell you guys about the gorilla, too, but I don't think...
We'll save that for Sunday.
Okay. Well, so I message her, and I get the conversation started, and yes, she's got a couple cows. Their names were Brownie, and what was the other one? Brownie and James. And so I got the conversation started, handed it over to Julie. And so then, we pay her for these cows. There wasn't that much money, and the cows get delivered. And we know nothing about cows, less than nothing. And, do we pet them? What are you supposed to do? I mean, what do you do with a cow?
All we knew is they liked sweet potatoes.
Yeah, they like sweet potatoes.
A lot.
And actually, we learned how to get them to come to us when we called them, which was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And I could do the cow bellow now, but all probably 50,000 of you would stop listening, so I'm not going to do that. So anyway, we got these cows, and we thought both these cows were bulls. And again, we're not looking under the, the hood to see what so we're assuming this lady sold us 2 boy cows because that's what she told us.
And they both had horns. So
and they both had horns, right? Yeah. And they both had, big badass cow attitudes, they thought they were like 1,000-pound. Well, I guess they were. They thought they were 3,000-pound cows. They break out of their fence all the time. And when
Julie chase each other, they'd chase the chickens. They would chase me if I had sweet potatoes.
That's right. And when Julie and I were in the house working occasionally, one of the cows, after he busted through the fence, would just come up to the window and just stare at us. I mean,
they were hilarious.
But so, long story short, we get the notion that we're going to move to Puerto Rico. This is over 2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago. And we had these really good friends and many, many really good friends in Georgetown, Texas. But the Connollys, and they had this beautiful ranch that was about a ways from ours. And they are real true Texans, so they knew some things that we didn't know. We gave them Zoe's chicken coop, and we also gave them these 2 cows. Well, they assumed they were boy cows too, because listen to me, boy cows. They assumed that they were bulls too, because that's what we told them. Yeah. They loaded them up, dropped them off. They had this big fenced-in area. The cows are out there. Well, it turns out one of them is a girl. And it turns out that basically we might have calves that are coming like any day now. Did I tell you that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's pregnant again. So, but we named these cows. We renamed them from James and Brown. We named them to Zeus and Apollo. And on the gate of this little ranch we had, we put caution attack cows. It was all a joke, but anybody outside of Texas would have thought it was real, So anyway, that was our adventure.
It was mostly a joke because they definitely would run you down for sweet potatoes.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
They'd follow you around, and if you had sweet potatoes and you didn't feed them, but they knew you had them, they would walk up to you and they'd headbutt you. And they, like I said, they were
Quite
really
serious.
cute cows, though, honestly.
Yes.
But anyway, that goes to the point that we were definitely not ranchers.
No.
And if any of you need us to help you sex a bovine, we're not your guy.
No.
We can't do it.
Definitely not.
And Justin Celeste Connolly, we apologize for basically leaving. Maybe it's going to end up being a lot of cows with you. Oh, and just the record, we do make the Connollys send us proof of life pictures because being that they're Texans, everything ends up as a
and
barbecue.
Since they have real cows that let's just say get on the truck now and then.
Yeah. So these had to be. These have a life sentence of
They're
being
pets.
Being strictly pets. Okay. I don't know. How did we get on that?
So that's I can't top that for April Fools. I haven't been able to come up with anything.
You mean Buttercup the horse?
Yes, I'll have to do better planning next year.
But you know what? There was some truth to that, though, because I was trying to get Zoe a mini horse. What's his name? The author that we had at one of our events. Remember?
I can't.
Yeah. So he had a mini horse that I was trying to. What was it? A mini donkey or mini? I think it was a mini donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a mini donkey I was trying to buy.
Is that Ryan Holiday?
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
So he had a ranch in Texas too, and he had this little mini. But then he sent me this video of this mini donkey following around this other donkey and like playing with this dog. And I said, dude, I cannot buy that little donkey and keep him away from his buddies.
No.
So I'm sorry.
We escaped it.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, you would have had a mini donkey, a mini horse, two mini cows.
Oh my gosh. And all those chickens.
All those chickens.
I do miss the chicken eggs. Those were really good.
Oh, yeah, they were. Okay. So moving ahead.
On a side note, one of our friends who lives in the neighborhood next to us, which is absolutely ruled by a homeowners association gated golf course, traditional neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay.
Hannah. Okay.
Yeah.
Somehow they've been able to get away with chickens and bunnies in their backyard. So, as you often say, it's better to have a friend with a boat than own a boat. I think it's better to have friends with chickens and bunnies than have to take care of them.
Yeah.
So
it does lend to a little kid's character having to take care of
so
things.
too.
Yeah. I mean, when we made Zoe go out there and rake out we did make her because she never wanted to do it. We make her go out and clean up after the chickens and, feed the cows behind
eggs.
the fence. Yeah. Those are good character building things. So that was our trip down April Fool's Road. And we apologize for the diversion. And so we're now going to flip a switch and get back to Real Estate Coaching Radio.
Back to reality for all of you.
And again, guys, thank you for continuing. I say this as I laugh. Thank you for continuing to make this the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. This podcast, we had 60,000 downloads on March 30th. And our goal has always been to get 100,000 downloads a day, which will make it one of the, this is what's really crazy. Ready, listeners? Right now, this podcast that you're listening to, believe it or not, is one of the most listened to and downloaded podcasts in the world. We're right now at top 0.045% of all podcasts. There's believed to be close to 2 million podcasts. And in the education space, we're number 26. And overall podcasts, we're something like 850. That's incredible. And it's all because of you guys. And hopefully it's because of the content obviously it's because the content we're providing is making a difference in your business and personal lives. So it is April 1st. It's the start of the second quarter. A lot of you are just getting back into the real estate business officially, and that you're deciding that you're going to really drill down. There's a lot of agents that basically work from this time of year to basically the end of October, and then they check out. And that's just the cycles of real estate in most parts of the country. It sort of follows the weather, really, mostly. So one of the things that we have written down, and one of the things we do this with all of our coaching clients, is we ask them these 12 questions to basically really help them to focus in on where they are in the year and whether they're on track, whether they're behind, or whether they're ahead of where their goals are.
And why.
And why, exactly. So what we're going to do today, I think we'll probably do half this today and half this tomorrow, is we're going to drill down on the questions. And I want you guys to write these questions down, ask them or answer them for yourself, and we'll help you with some of the answers too, based on some of the things we've heard over the last 2 decades of coaching agents that maybe, will uncover some things lurking in shadows to help you clear out the cobwebs of your thinking and really make the most of what is probably the best housing boom in the history of, at least the United States. Now, before we get to point number one, I also want to remind you, if you don't have a specific way of knowing whether you're ahead, behind, or on track, it's simply because you don't have a real estate treasure map. You don't have your business plan completed, which, by the way, point number one is, do you follow a business plan, or do you have your business plan completed? It's not too late for you to complete your business plan. We've made it about as easy as we possibly could, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Right now, while you're thinking about it, open up the SMS app on your phone and text 2021 to this phone number, 855-685-1045. Text 2021 to 855-685-1045. And when you do, we're going to text you back a link. And that link is going to allow you to download a book called The Real Estate Treasure Map. The Real Estate Treasure Map is simply our fill-in-the-blank business plan. Now, I want to warn you, this is not just some wimpy one-pager. And if that's what you're looking for, chances are you're probably not that serious about your business if I'm just cutting through it. You want to complete a real drilled down, look at all the finances, look at all the, really something to challenge yourself in the way you think about your business and your potentiality. This is business and personal life plan. And all you've got to do is text 2021 to 855-685-1045. I'll say it slower. Text 2021 to 855-685-1045, and we're going to immediately text you back a link to download the Real Estate Treasure Map, Think and Grow Rich for Real Estate, which is the best book for mindset, and a bunch of other freebies as well. But do that urgently, and if you've not completed your 2021 business plan, this is your opportunity to do it. And again, the business plan, as you're going through it, it's going to be thought-provoking. It's going to ask questions. It's going to tell you,
personalized.
Right. It's going to tell you how to essentially take your way of thinking with regards to lead generation, with regards to finances. It's going to cut through everything. And like Julie just said, you're completing this, you're answering the questions. This is very personalized for you and your family, or you and your dog, right? It's all good. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and text 2021 to 855-685-1045. And that was point number one, Julie.
Indeed. So that's the easier point, because point number two is, are you actually following it? So we've made your life easier by laying it out, and it literally is a fill-in-the-blank plan. And many of you already have this. We talked to you about this fourth quarter. We talked to you about it at the beginning of the year. We remind you to do it. We give it to you. So many of our listeners, and certainly our coaching clients, have completed it. So that is question number one. That brings us to number two. Are you actually following it? Now, are you following it a little bit? Are you following it when you feel like it, when the sun is out, randomly, or are you taking it really seriously? So that might be a place for you to underline, to circle, to recommit that you're actually following it. You took the time to put it together. Now you've got to follow it.
Well, but I often wonder, Julie, of all the, gosh knows how many at this point, people have downloaded the Real Estate Treasure Map, how many actually printed it? Right? And then how many actually completed it? And then how many actually completed it with the whole thing, doing all the math? And then how many actually reflect back upon it?
I almost had a question in here. Can you tell me right this second where it actually is?
Right. Well, it's because here's the thing. How many pages is this thing when you
lot.
print it out? Like 70?
Yeah, it's maybe even more than that, because there's some reading involved. There's some education involved.
We made it complicated on purpose, because if you force yourself to go through all the pages and complete all the questions and really complete this treasure map, you've now personally involved yourself to the point where you're going to use it. And if it's just a one-pager, those are the things that you end up in your circular file. But an actual treasure map that you've actually completed and you've actually invested the time, well, it's asking you for financial questions, for example. You don't know those questions. You're going to go research them. Mm-hmm. You're going to answer those. You're going to enter those questions in your treasure map.
And the goal-setting piece.
Right. The whole thing is designed to force you to actually take it seriously, because most of you, if we're being honest, I know just statistically, we've given this to tens of thousands of agents over the years. And I bet you, as soon as you say, well, how many have actually printed it? I bet 1,000. How many have actually completed? I bet 500. How many actually completed at the highest level and didn't skip any pages or whatever? I bet you, however many we've given those out, you're probably looking at 250 people ever. Statistically, and those are the people that are those are the ones that ultimately are going to succeed at the highest level. And isn't that interesting? How that's almost exactly like how essentially success is dispersed, right?
Yeah.
There's not
That's
somebody
reality.
there's not somebody saying this one's going to be successful and this one isn't going to be successful, despite what politics would have you believe. It's about the individual who's willing to put in the real work and really drill down and make themselves uncomfortable, make themselves do the extra effort, because on the other side of that, you'll discover that's where all your answers are. And then you stop wasting time looking for easy buttons and hacks.
Yes, but you've got to do the actual work. Read it. We talked to you about things like, the difference between internal accountability, external accountability. We drill down on your finances. We talk about spokes in the wheel. We talk about your magic number. All of those things are in the treasure map. So point number 3, are you on track, ahead, or behind what your plan calls for 1 quarter into the year? So that requires that you would know, are you on track, ahead, or behind, where you actually should be for the year. Things like how many deals you have pending, how much money you've brought in, what has your net been, where is it, where is all of that coming from? Being really tuned into what you've done 1 quarter in. So are you on track, ahead, or behind, and why?
So let's talk about that. If you are behind, do not give yourself a break. If you are behind in your treasure map and you're basically not doing the numbers you're supposed to be doing, do not say, well, I'll make it up, because you won't. So what you need to do is, if you're just going to if you've fallen behind with what your first quarter, what should have been your first quarter numbers, unless you increase the effort moving into second quarter, you're not going to catch it back up. What you're going to do is you're not working at a high enough pace. You're not producing enough results. You're not essentially bringing to the market what the market's willing to pay for in a high enough level. In other words, you're not essentially providing for potential sellers, as an example, what they're willing to pay for in skill set. Are you proactively lead generating? Are you doing those types of things? So if you've fallen behind, whatever it was that caused you not to be on track that you're falling behind on your first quarter, you're going to carry that same essentially low level of momentum into the second quarter, into the third quarter, and then you're going to have a crappy year.
Unless you change your ways.
You have to change your ways. You have to realize that if you're already behind where you should be, chances are that is negative momentum unless you hit that behavior with some massive neutron bomb of course correction and really accepting the fact that you're slacking either educationally, either effort wise, whatever it is, you're not doing something right, and that's the reason you've fallen behind your first quarter goals. What most people do is they'll give themselves a break. They'll say, you know what, it was a hard first quarter, it snowed a lot, and I'll just basically, no, you have to second quarter make up for where you slacked in the first quarter. Otherwise, it compounds. First quarter then carries, that negative momentum carries into second, and by the time third quarter rolls around, you've given up on the year. Does that sound familiar, listeners? How many of you have done exactly that?
So we're giving you permission to hit the hard reset and go ahead and get your treasure map if you haven't done it already. If you've done it but you're not following it, recommit to it. And evaluate, are you on track, ahead, or behind, and why? So a lot of our listeners are actually ahead right now, and then maybe they're following the momentum of the market, which is fantastic. That is your job, is to take what the market's willing to give to you to the highest level. And if that's the case, what got you there? So that brings us to question number 4.
But it is worth mentioning that you do need to be mindful of what your coaches, Jules and I and all of our coaches, are telling you. With regards to how the market's going to transition massively towards probably, I'd say, the end of this next or the quarter we're in now. There are going to be so many new licensees that are coming online to compete with you for the buyers that if you're buyer dependent, if you're buying buyer leads, if you're in this whole buyer trough, you're going to have your butt handed to you as new agents enter in the marketplace. They're going to further basically, cause more noise with all these buyers who are already overloaded with agents wanting to do business with them. Lack of inventory, dropping commission rates. So again, if you're falling behind and you're finding that the business is getting harder, I bet you both the things that are both true, I bet the one thing is true if you're falling behind and you're finding the market's getting harder is you're too dependent on buyers. The agents on the listing side of the business are having their best years ever, and they're building momentum. You've got to realize you've got to take a hard pivot and seriously focus all your best energies every day on working with sellers.
Yes. Okay, so brings us to question number 4. This may end up being a 2-day show. Okay, number 4, what are you doing well that you must continue to do or do even more of?
So let's help them determine what that is.
Okay.
Here's a very simple way of determining this. If you have had closings so far this year, this is what you do. You write down the source of that business, and then you replicate whatever that source of the business was.
As well as with their pendings.
Right, and also with your pendings. If you haven't had any closings so far this year, go back into last year and source that source of business as well, and replicate that. But really, what you're doing well, you have to think in terms of, you don't know what you're doing well if you've fallen behind. You might think you're doing things well in anticipation of those things essentially creating business for you down the road. That is the very thinking that's going to cause you to have a bad year. You need to be more strategic and short-term thinking with the opportunities that are in front of you. Don't believe that your best energies every single day should be spent building brands or doing social networking and working on your CRM. You got to be focusing all your best energies right now on people that are ready to transact with you now. You got to know how to proactively lead generate those people, pre-qualify those people, present to those people. That is where your focus should be. This is not the working on your business time of year. This is the working in your business time of year.
So point number 5 makes a lot of sense after what you just said. What must you stop doing immediately? That would be things that would be work theater. Okay, so the stuff that appears to be work but is not actually paying off. So how do you run that through the filter? Well, you just rattled off most of it. What actually makes you money in real estate? You've got lead generation, furiously fast lead follow-up, pre-qualify, present, negotiate, close. And we find a way in pretty much every podcast to remind you of those things. It is not all of the social media stuff. That we're not saying don't do it. We're saying when you do it, it should be in support of the real work of real estate.
Specifically, Julie and I's philosophy, and the thing that's obviously resonating with millions of agents, is the simple fact that you need to be proactive lead generation based and marketing enhanced. That means you have to essentially build your business around skills, around doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. Yes, I realize that is not a popular message, but it's also the truth. If you want to accomplish anything in life, you have to be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do when other people aren't willing to do it at a level which they never can or never will. And so that is the whole idea behind proactive lead generation. The passive lead generation stuff is the thing that's going to make you broke. It is the thing that's going to make you fill your heart full of despair because you're not accomplishing the success that you were promised if you decide to do all the passive social networking stuff. Well, once you've heard our voices, once you've read our book, once you've become one of our coaching clients, you can't lie to yourself anymore and say that you weren't exposed to the truth about how to build essentially a long-term real estate business. You can't lie to yourself and saying, well, I only knew how to do this social stuff because that's what everyone was telling me. Well, Julie and I have now told you the truth. It's up to you to decide to take action on it or not.
Exactly. So point number 6, what skill needs immediate improvement and what are you actually doing about it? One would be led to believe that could be the listing skill, perhaps.
Definitely.
But for some cases, I listen to a lot of, prospecting calls, lead generation calls. Our clients send us stuff to listen to. And I would say, yes, everyone should be always working on their listing skills, but there's other things along the way, like how quickly you're following up on your leads. What are you actually saying in your lead follow-up?
Well, Jules, that's what you just said.
All that kind of stuff.
The key elements that you have to master in real estate, and this is all you ever get good at, you can be terrible at everything else. And I've had personal coaching clients that are exactly what I'm about to say, and they have been terrible at everything else. Mm-hmm. You have to be really good at proactive lead generation. You have to be really good at pre-qualifying. You have to be really good at presenting. And then Julie would throw in there, you have to be really good at negotiating, right? But I'll say on the seller side of things, negotiating right now is just not that hard because you have so many offers. So negotiation is something that sort of takes care of itself. But the other 3 things, you have to proactively lead generate, you have to learn to pre-qualify, and you have to learn to present. If those are the 3 things you only get good at in a market like this, you're going to be right as rain.
That's right. So which of those things, or for some of you, it may be all of those things, do you need immediate improvement upon? Some of the obvious ones would be, being able to be proactive in the first place and not waiting for something to rain upon you, praying to the real estate gods.
Have you, Julie, honestly, have you ever had even a very, very experienced and successful agent be so good at those things that there was absolutely no value you could bring to them with their ability to proactively lead generate, pre-qualify, present, right?
There's always things to work
on. And I'll tell you what's more is the most successful agents that we've coached, those are often the agents that basically have blind spots to where they're terrible at proactive lead generation, pre-qualifying, or presenting.
I would agree with that.
Those are the ones that when you get into their, pretend I'm the seller, let's do a listing presentation, let me hear what you say. I find some of the biggest dumpster fires when I go through that with the most successful agents because they never learned it right in the first place.
Right. Or they have started to skip steps without realizing it.
And they've also started, well, maybe long ago, they accepted that they are okay taking 60% of their listing appointments. They have essentially, they've come to believe that they're not capable of getting 100%, which they are.
Like they believe it's just a roll of the dice. They're either going to like me or they're not. You know, it's like personality based versus skill based. You're leaving so much money on the table and so much professional assistance that you should be giving people just out of skipping steps, laziness, or I think to your point, they never really learned it right in the first place.
And that goes back to the secondary point, right? Pre-qualifying. If you don't, it's what you said, Julie. It's in our book, Harris Rules. It continues to be a bestseller, almost 505. That's right, almost 500 5-star reviews on Amazon. It rhymes. So it's available at Barnes & Noble, too, if you happen to have one of those. There are no Barnes & Nobles in Puerto Rico, but anyway, so pre-qualifying is really important. Don't go if you don't know, is what Julie says in the book. And that simply means do not go on a listing appointment unless you know what the seller thinks the house is worth, unless you know the seller, if the seller is interviewing anybody else, unless you know for sure what the seller's motivation is.
If they're going to buy something with you or someone else.
You have to know all these things prior to going, and that's what a really good pre-qualification script will walk you through. And it's in our coaching program, the way it works is when you have a seller lead, we want you to print these out. Like when it's basically the idea is you have red pages and blue pages, right? And when you have somebody call on that's a buyer, you can pre-qualify them you pull the blue page down. Here's all the questions. You just fill in the answers. Red page, you just do the same thing. Reds are for sellers. And then you just go, it's a script. And then you just ask all the questions. They don't know you're reading a script, but you know you're reading a script. A script is nothing other than a conversation outline that's basically designed to provide the desired result for you and the client. That's it. That's all a script is. So you're going through and you're asking all the questions, but when you follow our script, you're going to get so much more information out of that seller. And then obviously after that, we want you to send our pre-listing pack, which is customized for you as a coaching client. So that's the whole gist of how this whole thing works. And here's the thing will shock many of you. Becoming a listing agent is easier when you basically follow one course until successful. When you follow one course until successful, you'll discover that working with sellers, even though many of you have no clue what the first step is so much easier, especially in this market, than working with buyers.
Massively easier.
You will, you're going to go through stages of what's it called, mourning, or stages of loss, stages of grief, when you're having to realize that you wasted so much time working with buyers and you could have made so much more money and had so much more freedom had you been focusing on sellers like we teach you in our coaching program.
Absolutely. I think this is a good place for us to stop, and because this has been so much for them to think about and digest and work on. And then we'll do the second half on tomorrow's podcast. So we've been talking about 12 questions to get you on track or ahead. If you are behind, be introspective about that. And I want to give them permission to do a hard reset on their year and allow us to help you versus just saying, well, I guess this is going to be another weird year for me.
I said something at the top of this, and I didn't want you guys to misunderstand. When I say be brutal with yourself, I really do mean that. Because everyone else in your life is telling you to basically give yourself a break. You've got to realize that really at the end of the day, everything in your life is nerfed up. Everything in your life and everyone in your life. Socially right now, the whole world is about stopping and smelling the roses. And the whole world is about essentially, you don't want to put so much pressure on yourself. Well, you know what? Maybe you do. Maybe on the other side of that stress, the thing that everyone says you're supposed to be avoiding is everything you want. Because here's the magical thing about stress. You're designed for it. You're built for it. You're built to handle so much more than what you're willing to allow yourself to experience. And I realize that on the pursuit of these, the goals that you're setting for yourself when you complete the real estate treasure map, you're not going to find too many people that are willing to actually commit to goal setting and life planning like you are. And that's okay. And along the way, when you're achieving things in life, when you start losing weight, when you start gaining wealth, when you start basically creating financial independence for yourself, it takes longer than you think, which is another Harris rule. Everything you want in life basically takes about 5 times longer than you think it should take to earn or achieve. And that's not true with everything, but it's pretty much true. You know what? The challenge you're going to have is once you're in pursuit of that, once you've created your real estate treasure map, once you're in action and you're building up positive momentum, it's what happens when you're not seeing immediate results because you're told in life that everything's supposed to be simpler than it is. And anything worth having is going to be way harder to achieve than you think it is, and way harder than what, essentially everyone in life is telling you it should take. And furthermore, you're going to make the mistake sometimes of staying on the wrong path for too long. So there's an old saying, it's called quitting. There's a difference between quitting and quitting while you're ahead. And going back to the questions that Julie just asked all of you, if you're doing something that's not producing 60 or 90-day results for you in the form of a paycheck, you need to not do it now because you're going to miss the market. You need to be spending all of your time right now, ideally in front of sellers, about listing their property, and you need to do that urgently. Don't give yourself any more hall passes. Don't say I'll get started tomorrow. Don't say I'll, whatever, because you're going to lose the entire year. And that's the reason you see a lot of agents give up at the end of October. And I'm talking to a lot of you right now. How many of you unofficially basically stop being active in real estate by the end of October? I can tell you, we're looking at our podcast stats. I can tell you,
disappear.
I can tell you by the number of people that log into our website for our coaching program around Halloween for some reason. A lot of agents just basically unplug. And I know why. It's because they give up on their goals. They say, well, there goes another year. I didn't really have anything to show for it.
I get motivated in January.
I'll start all over again. This year it's going to be different.
Yeah, and
right?
then January throws you a snowstorm, and then it's going to be in the spring.
Or maybe last year it's a damn pandemic, right? Okay, so look, there always are going to be excuses not to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. Why don't you stop giving yourself a hall pass? Why don't you stop being so damn nice to yourself? Why don't you start being intolerant, pissed off, absolutely and completely just outraged, thank you, that you are not moving towards the accomplishment of your goals in a meaningful way. On the other side of that pain, when you create enough inner tension or stress, you're going to then want to alleviate that feeling. And that only way you're going to alleviate that feeling is actually by doing what you said you were going to do. And what you do now is you get up to the point, well, I'm feeling stressed. Tim and Julie are telling me stressful things. I don't like what they're saying. And then how many of you right now are just like letting it go? You're not allowing it to manifest in yourself. You're not allowing yourself to feel that stress. But what happens if you did, and then you worked through it, and then you accomplished the things you'd said you would accomplish? Then you realize, guess what? You made it. You did it. You have the capacity for so much more than you're allowing yourself to experience in this life.
Then lather, rinse, repeat.
Right. And last rule is when ordering cows, make sure you don't order... Otherwise, you might
do a little research.
You might find yourself that you are becoming an involuntary rancher.
Exactly.
So happy April Fool's Day, guys. If there's anything we can do for you, if you'd like Julie and I to be your personal sponsors at EXP, of course, we'd love to talk with you about that. Just text me directly, 512-758-0206. By the way, one of the number one things all of you should be doing is really, if it's time for you to take a hard reset in your professional life, even your personal life, moving over to EXP Realty is a really good move for all of you. So if you're ready to have that conversation, or if you're ready even more to join EXP and you're looking for the right sponsor, because the right sponsor matters, text Julie and I directly at 512-758-0206. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.